Hello students, hope you all are fine. Children, today in this session we will discuss the fifth chapter from your Moments text. The name of the chapter is The Happy Prince. Children, The Happy Prince and the Other Tales is a collection of stories for children by Oscar Wilde, first published in May 1888. It contains 5 stories: The Happy Prince, The Nightingale and the Rose, The Selfish Giant, The Devoted Friend, and The Remarkable Rocket. If you remember, in grade 8 we have done this chapter, The Selfish Giant. Children, now let us understand about the writer Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was an Irish poet and playwright. He was a dramatist who was a spokesman for the late 19th century. After writing in different forms throughout the 1880s, the early 1890s saw him become one of the most popular playwrights in London. Oscar Wilde was born on 16th October 1854 in Westland Row, Ireland, and he died on 30 November 1900 in France. Oscar Wilde has written many short stories like The Picture of Dorian, The Canterville Ghost. All these are the books of Oscar Wilde. Let us now understand the lesson. Children, this chapter Happy Prince reflects the image of the modern society where the upper classes are unaware about the misery of the downtrodden people. The worst aspects of the modern society we can overcome by selfless love. The first and second part of the story proves this. We see that life has many problems and difficulties. It is a very big struggle. Man has to work constantly for living happy. And man is a social being. He can't remain all alone. That's why we live in a society. Since man faces a lot of problems, these problems become less pinching if other human beings help in solving them. It is said that God is pleased with human beings who help the needy. Therefore, we can see that in serving the needy, we serve God. The real happiness lies in helping the needy. The Happy Prince gave everything, whatever he had, to give comfort to the needy. The true joy and happiness lies in helping the needy. Now, let us understand the story here. There stood the statue of the Happy Prince on a tall column in the city. He was gilded all over, and he had thin leaves of fine gold. He had 2 bright sapphires for his eyes. A large ruby glowed on his sword hilt. A little swallow came and sat on the statue. He decided to spend the night on it. But as he was going to sleep, a large drop of water fell on him. The swallow was amazed. There was no cloud, yet it rained. The second drop of the water made the swallow decide to fly off. The third drop of water made him look at the statue. The statue was weeping. The statue spoke to the swallow. It said that when it was alive, it had not known what tears were, and his courtiers called him Happy Prince. Now that he sat very high, he saw the miseries of the people in the city. The Happy Prince told the swallow that there lived a woman far away, and she was a seamstress, and she was embroidering flowers on a satin gown of the Queen's maid of honor. The maid was to wear it at the next court ball, and in the room, in a bed there lay a ill boy. He was suffering from fever. The happy prince asked the swallow to pick the ruby from his sword hilt and give it to the woman. But the swallow told him that his friends had gone to Egypt and he was also waiting to go there. But the happy prince requested the swallow and told him to stay one night. The swallow agreed. He picked up the ruby and flew to the woman's house, and he put the ruby near the woman's thimble. He also fanned the boy's forehead. The boy felt a bit better, and he sank into deep slumber. The swallow flew back to the happy prince. He felt warmer, though it was cold, and the happy prince told him that it was because he had done a good act. The swallow wanted to fly back to Egypt, but the happy prince again told him to stay there one more night. He told the swallow that he saw a playwright in a little room and he was trying to finish the play for the theatre, but it was he was too cold to write and he was hungry. Now the happy prince asked the swallow to pluck one sapphire from his eye and give it to the playwright. The playwright saw the sapphire and he was happy. Now he hoped to finish the play. The swallow went to the happy prince. He told him that he had come to bid him goodbye. But the happy prince again asked him to stay back for one more night. Now the happy prince told the swallow that there was a little match girl in the square below. All her matches had fallen in the gutter, and her father would beat her if she didn't bring home some money. She was crying. Now the happy prince asked the swallow to pluck out the sapphire from his other eye and give it to her. The swallow did as the prince told him. He put the sapphire into the little girl's hand. The swallow then flew back to the happy prince and he told the prince that he would stay with the prince. Why did he tell like that, children? Because the prince was now blind. The happy prince asked him to fly over the city and tell him what he was able to see. So the happy prince was not able to see. So the swallow told him that whatever happened in the city. And the happy prince told the swallow that the most marvelous thing was the human suffering and the human misery was the greatest mystery. The swallow flew over the city. He saw hungry children. He saw people who were rich making merry. He also saw many poor children. The happy prince asked him to take leaf after leaf of the fine gold over his body and give it to them. Now the poor laughed and the children played. Then there came the snow and then frost. Everything looked white. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he didn't leave the happy prince. However, he could not keep himself alive. At last, he knew that he was about to die. So, the swallow asked the prince to let him kiss his hand. And the prince thought that the swallow was going back to Egypt. So, he told the swallow to kiss him on his lips. And the prince told him that he was not going to Egypt. He was going to the house of death. And he fell down dead. At that moment, there appeared a crack in the side of the statue. The heart of the happy prince broke into two. The dead swallow lay at its feet, and the next morning, the mayor and the town councillors came that way. They looked at the statue and they declared that the happy prince was no longer beautiful, so he was no longer useful. They melted the statue in a furnace, but the broken heart didn't melt, so they threw it away. Now, God asked one of his angels to bring him the most precious thing from the city. Two most precious things. The angel bought him the heart of the happy prince and the dead bird. God told that in the garden of paradise the little bird would sing forever and the happy prince would praise him forever in his city of gold. So, children, this was the story of the happy prince. So, what is the moral we can learn from this, children? Don't you feel that this story is really wonderful, having themes such as social injustice, and it's having a moral, and it is also talking about the disparity between the poor and the wealthy, loss of innocence, sacrifice, love, empathy, and compassion. Children, it is important that we take care of everyone when we live in a place. This story is trying to tell us the generosity of spirit, and it is talking about the kind-hearted swallow who sacrificed his life. So, children, this was the story of the happy prince, and let us all try to do some good deeds, some good act after reading this story. Thank you, children.